Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh. Yeah. It's percolating. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning to the people on Facebook. Good morning to the people on IG. Good morning to the people on the YouTube. Good morning to the people on LinkedIn and Twitter too. Java. Percolating. Get a vibe, stay ready. Truth in the cup, keep it strong, keep it steady. Pull up a chair, yeah. Take a sip with me. Good morning, good people. Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Love percolating. Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Yeah, Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Friday. That's why my days are off, because, I'm not on Fridays. But today is Friday. Okay, that's better. Today is Friday, July 31st, 2026. And you are in the Java Cafe this morning for a special brew. I wanted to be sure that I accommodated this brother's schedule because he is busy in his incumbent role and then also as a candidate. We have the honor today for the second time bringing into the Java Cafe District Attorney Kevin Hayden. Before we get ready to bring him in, just again, a formal welcome. He'll say hello in a couple of seconds as well. And please do me a favor. In addition to, liking the platform and all of that, share this episode because you're going to hear from the DA today about things like body cam footage, diversion, his vision, what he feels he's accomplished in the last few years, and then what is his vision for the office going forward. And some of the context of the questions is in a time where things are very interesting with law enforcement. And so we're going to check in with him about that. And so do me a favor, go ahead and share this episode. Yes, you can go back and you can watch it on demand, but there's nothing like the live participation in the conversation. So welcome to everybody that's over on Instagram, as well as those that are on Facebook. So his time is valuable. We're going to bring him in. Please help me welcome as I present to some and introduce to others. I think it's presenting more than introducing, but presenting to some and introducing to others. Kevin Hayden, who is the district attorney here in the Suffolk County. Kevin, good morning. Good to see you back in the Java Cafe, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jimmy. Good to see you. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you well. We got good tech. You look good. You got good lighting.
Thank you. Thank you. We try.
And the only thing is you couldn't get rid of that support beam right there to your right.
Oh, is it?
No. It's good. I just, Kevin.
Good?
I just had to mess. And so, Kevin, attorney Hayden, I'm going to
You can call me Kevin, by the way, if you want to. Feel free.
Sir. I just want to give the respect because you as a black man that's an attorney, that's an elected, that is achieved, that needs to be respected. And so I may fluctuate between Kevin and attorney Hayden. When you hear attorney Hayden, it might be just a wee bit more of a contentious question. I'm messing. So I do as I often with people in your position. You are the law enforcement officer for Suffolk County. a little bit of context before we get into the question. I'm sure that generally daily, there's a lot of things in the job, but then as of late, you're running a campaign, but then also you made a very interesting decision to do some things in your post that may have not been done by others or in the past. And I presume that that may have some level of weight on you. And so we'll get into that. But I have to ask respectfully, as a man, as a human, how are you doing? And then I wanted to also allow you some time because there was a great king, a great man that you and I had in common. You know,
Mhm.
we saw each other. It was at his memorial. So how is Kevin? And then anything you would like to say to Katani and the girls and the family and the community that loved our brother Chris Sumner. I will allow you space to do that as well.
Yeah. I am. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm doing well. I'm doing good. But by the grace of God, I think I was sharing with. I don't remember who I was sharing this with yesterday, but I don't try to do anything on my own strength. And in fact, if I did, I might mess it up. So I got a wonderful family. I've got a wife that loves me and that supports me all day, every day. I got two beautiful boys that constantly um, keep me focused. That being said, and I'm not going to lie, we had an opportunity to lift up Katani and Pastor Chris at our Basketball for Peace event early this week. We gave him posthumously and her the Alfreda Harris Award. Pastor Chris was near and dear to me. I've known him for a long time. He's not just my pastor; he's my friend. He's my brother. It was tough. It was tough seeing him go through what he went through. Seeing the essence of who he was sort of get taken away piece by piece, and then his passing happening so quickly. But he's in a better place. Pastor Matt talked about wanting him to be healed. Well, he's healed. He's healed, and he's in a better place. We're going to miss him dearly. I love him to death. To the Sumner family, you know how much I love you and appreciate you. By the way, if y'all don't know that family, my God, the grace and dignity with which they carry themselves and which they carried themselves through this trial and tribulation is absolutely amazing. Everyone should follow their example. Just an amazing, amazing family. Yeah.
I appreciate that, sir. And because I know we both knew him, and and I'll kind of fluctuate a little bit because it is part of your story. And so I will ask for those that are meeting you maybe for the first time, if you in that transition can incorporate a little bit of how faith plays a role in who you are. I am aware that you're a deacon, and so if you could start with that as we transition into some of your story, and then we'll get into some questions just about your role in the office and some active things that are going on.
Yeah.
Who is Kevin?
One of the things I would say is this, my father, Bob Hayden, gave me my desire to be a public servant. He was a civil rights activist and a historian and expert on Black history here in Boston, New England area, throughout the country. My mother instilled the faith that I have in me, but I haven't been saved all my life. We all sin and fall short of the glory of God. We still do. I still do. But faith is a tremendous part of sort of how I sustain myself, how I try to conduct myself and live my life. I actually met the best man in my wedding and one of my best friends to this day, Doug Lomax, who was working in the Boston Municipal Court at the time when I was a young ADA. We've been knit together in ways that I never would have imagined. It's through our faith. It's through the time we had together at Jubilee. But stepping sort of aside from that, and it's never aside from it because that's always a part of who I am. I've been involved in the legal system for 30 years as a district attorney, as a defense attorney, as a leader of a public safety agency. I believe that my experience and integrity and temperament is a very important part of why this race is so important. I believe it's what distinguishes me from the other candidates. We've done a lot of good work, and we need to continue to do that. We can never rest on our laurels, and we never will. We're always doing everything we can to continue to enhance public safety in all of our communities, particularly in our communities of color. By the way, that has to be stated very clearly. And there's a reason for that, because our communities of color, our Black and brown communities, are impacted more by crime, both as victims and as witnesses. And so if we're not constantly pressing forward in every area of the city and doing everything we can to make every corner of our communities throughout Suffolk County safe, then we're not doing our job. And that's what we're committed to. And that's what we want to keep doing.
I appreciate that. And Attorney Hayden, I think, and it's not a contentious point. I'm just trying to stick to what you've achieved. In the fact of faith and in the fact of you articulating that, you are one, Black and brown men experience a different level of engagement with law enforcement. That mixed with, I'm not sure if you're familiar, this isn't Sunday school, but the scripture Micah 6:8 around loving justice, loving your God. How do you, and we'll get into some questions here, how do you balance that loving justice and also being the law enforcement officer under the umbrella that you're operating in a system that is not designed to handle Black and brown people equitably?
Yeah.
How does your faith play into your decisions, where sometimes the way the system works in your role prioritizes a way that you make a decision? How do you with that?
Yeah. I guess I would say a couple of things. We've all, none of us have, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. People make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I'm always very careful to understand and recognize I have no condemnation for any man or woman or any person. The job that we do within our criminal legal system as prosecutors, though, is we do condemn actions and hold people accountable, but it's always important to remember that there are human beings involved in every situation, across the spectrum, in every case, whether it's a minor case or whether it's whether it's shoplifting or whether it's murder. There are people that are impacted, and there are defendants, people charged. There is community that's impacted. There are victims and witnesses that are impacted. We always have to remember the human element across the entire spectrum of our criminal legal system if we're going to get it right and do justice. And then the second part is in reference to this the scripture that you just mentioned too. In the prosecutorial realm, I think people often think of compassion and mercy as a negative thing. It's exactly the opposite. Compassion and mercy are absolutely positively necessary for any person in a prosecutorial role to be able to do a good job.
I appreciate that. And in that same vein, when you talk about prosecution, you mentioned shoplifting. You were in a recent interview and used that as an example. A few years ago, during a very first interview, Attorney Hayden, which was very interesting. Definitely a different energy today. One of the points of contention with a lot of voters was Rachel's list of 15. And the shoplifting and things like that was on that list. May I ask you, with that movement of reform, what are the things that you may have embraced? What are the things that you are still firmly no? And what are the things that, being in the position, you're further feeling things out, for lack of better words? Can you talk to us a little bit about that comparison? And let's name, she's a contender, vying back for this role, along with another. Wonderful that we have a Black man and two Black women doing that. And so she is running again, and has named some of that. Can you share with us what's the status of things post being in the office in reference to the reform that the former district attorney was executing?
Sure. I'd say one thing by way of introduction with regards to the past and contention. I think generally what's happened over the course of my time in the first administration is that people have gotten to know me, and people have come to realize that I'm not necessarily what they may have perceived. Do I have a different philosophy with regards to diversion and with regards to how lower level offenses are handled, I think, in comparison to the former DA. Yes, I do. I don't think that's ever been a doubt in anyone's mind. That being said, diversion is absolutely positively necessary within our system, particularly as we talk about criminal legal reform and how we prevent people from getting caught up in a pipeline of criminality and down a road of incarceration. We want to get people away from our criminal legal system, not involved in it. And so diversion absolutely positively plays an important role. But you cannot divert, in my opinion, you can't divert people to nowhere. And one size does not fit all. So we continue. We are diverting cases, lower level offenses cases at an extraordinarily high level, but we're doing it through robust programming because we want to make sure that people don't reoffend. That's the ultimate goal. If you are shoplifting and homelessness is driving your shoplifting, then because you need diapers for your kid or whatever it may be, then we have to deal with your underlying issue, or you're going to keep reoffending. You are going to keep shoplifting. We cannot just divert you to nowhere and just say, no, don't ever do that again. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certainly circumstances, and we do that, where we say, yeah, no, don't ever do that again. We're not even going to choose to arraign you in this particular situation, or where you're going to do community service. But a lot of people that are coming in our system are caught up in a situation where if we don't find a way to put some balance in, they will continue to reoffend. They will continue to recidivate, and we don't want to see that. So our Services Over Sentences program is a perfect example, and that's tackling the opioid epidemic and what's been going on in mass incarceration, which I hate calling it mass incarceration, and it is not even mass incarceration anymore, by the way. But through Services Over Sentences, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing in terms of getting people clean, sober, opportunity, access away from drug use, hopefully to restoration. And we're doing that in very real and powerful ways. It is labor intensive, don't get me wrong, but those cases are being diverted. But it's more than just that. We're saving lives. We are saving lives. When you look, we have an emerging adult resolution program in Suffolk County. It's innovative. It's one of the first things that's ever been done, certainly in Massachusetts, where we've taken our juvenile alternative resolution program, which has been extraordinarily successful for our young people, and said, hey, let's follow the brain science. Let's recognize that some 18 to 25-year-olds need the same access and opportunity to diversion and resources that we are providing for our young people. If you're 19 as opposed to 17, what's the difference? From a brain development standpoint, and also from a standpoint of what you may have done, very similar. Why don't you get the same options? So we're providing those options, and we're doing that in the adult court with our emerging adult program. So we are providing diversion that is robust, that works, that is making a difference, and again, ultimately, is hopefully keeping people from reoffending.
I appreciate that answer. And not so much that answer, but I appreciate your response and sharing with us your approach to that. And I'll be transparent and honest since I'm talking to you about transparency. There is and I told someone, I said, I've been in community with Kevin. I heard your story at Dee Dee's Cry. I said, sometimes, there's Kevin and then there's, the district attorney. And so I can attest to that. Attorney Hayden, you referenced to your office, essentially saving lives. I'm trying to decide with what question or which way to go with this. One thing that your office was involved in was with the Jacoby Kinney case. And there's some ambiguity, sir, as to why, if I'm right, and please take about 30 seconds and educate us on the process. That happened in Suffolk County. It happened in Suffolk County Jail. But the determination of a homicide was made by the Attorney General's office. Wherewith you can you update us and give any insight as to how or why that happened? And if I'm right, traditionally, that would be something that would be investigated with your office in BPD?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Jacoby, I just want to make sure we're clear, because forgive me, I had so many cases. Jacoby Kennedy is the gentleman
That was
who unfortunately passed away in the House of Corrections after a number of people attempted to subdue him. I mean, think about the right case. Is that right?
yes, and the medical examiner
Yeah.
made that
So,
determination.
So I look, if we could talk all day about this if we wanted to. So I want to be careful to try to synthesize this answer. First of all, let's give one clarification, and that is that it is the medical examiner who has ruled that case a homicide. That determination by the medical examiner is not surprising, because the medical examiner's definition of a homicide is a little different than the legal standards which we employ, or which the Attorney General's office employs, which I'll talk about in a second. So the medical examiner is going to, if they rule that there is death at the hands of another, the hands of another have resulted in someone's death, they're going to call that a homicide. That question does not necessarily get to the issue of criminal liability. It's a different standard that they are looking at. So that's what the medical examiner has determined. What the Attorney General's office, in conjunction with us, is now looking at is whether or not that amounts to a level of criminality, whether it be a charge of manslaughter, second-degree murder, first-degree murder. Those terms, which are legal terms, are different than the term homicide. So the Attorney General is the lead investigatory arm with regards to this matter right now. We are assisting them. And I think they've asked for that assistance. We've been willing to provide it. I think it's been a very helpful collaboration, but it is being conducted in the grand jury, in their grand jury. It is under investigation, so I'm not going to get into a lot of details as far as that's concerned. But it's probably one of the more complex investigations you're going to see, because there's not just video in the case. There's literally over 100 witnesses. There's a lot of information that needs to be synthesized. There's a lot of witnesses that need to be spoken to, interviewed, potentially testify before the grand jury. So the Attorney General is overseeing that process. The Attorney General is overseeing that process in part because we wanted to make sure that any appearance of impropriety or conflict of interest was removed. And so that's why the Attorney General has taken the lead in the matter.
Thank you for that. Kevin, there is another very active situation, the one to which I referred in the beginning, that I'm sure you have lost a lot of sleep over, life loss. You made a determination to prosecute Boston police officer Nicholas O'Malley for the killing of Stephen King. That has, you and I have had some text and in-person conversation about the transparency, the body cam footage. I'll say it before you do. It is definitely currently under investigation. With cases like that, this skates a little bit along the line of like an integrity unit, officers you reference to, not verbatim, but the Attorney General kind of supporting the Jacoby Kenny case because of so much closeness between the law enforcement sectors. How are you handling, sir, in a time where we need transparency, we need accountability, and in this case, not necessarily transparency from you, maybe, but accountability in reference to the actions of the officer? Where are we with things? And sir, what is, away from an active investigation, respectfully, what is the philosophy when, by my awareness, there has been past precedents of body cam footage being available to family and some community leaders while there's an active investigation? What's different here, sir? What's different here? Is it because you're charging an actual law enforcement officer? What's different?
Well, so first of all, in terms of losing sleep and the difficulty, I think it's important that people understand this. We make difficult decisions every single day. Whenever there's a situation where there's been an alleged intentional killing of another, more often than not, it does not involve a police officer. It involves two civilians. It involves one person who may have committed the crime. It involves someone else who's unfortunately no longer with us, and a family that is grieving. Those decisions are always difficult. They are difficult in every situation. And so in some ways, despite the perceptions, this wasn't really much more difficult, so to speak. I can understand why people think it might be, because it involved a law enforcement officer, but our job is to do justice and hold people accountable, regardless of stature, regardless of position, regardless of race, class, color, or creed. So we did, in this case, what we would do in any other. So therein lies the difference that we're talking about here. We made a decision that based on the facts and based on the law, that this case should go to the grand jury. The notion that it should go to the grand jury first is just, in my opinion, not accurate. That's not what we do in every other case. We treated this case like we did any other. We proceeded with the charge and arraignment in district court, and then on to the grand jury for the presentation. That's how we handle every single situation. That hasn't happened in 31 years. Once that happened, there are a number of legal issues that are involved. So the other instances, and I've only had one during my term as a DA, and it was very early on. We had one of those meetings. We had a meeting at the Boston Police Department with regards to a young man that was shot and killed over in Upham's Corner, involving an interaction with a police officer. We had that meeting with leaders of the community, with a couple members of the ministry, with some of the political leaders from the constituent area that was affected. And to be transparent, we showed the video, and not just showed the video, we explained the case, what the case was, where it lied, and indicated that it was under investigation. And I think that level of transparency satisfied the people that were in the room. That was a much smaller group than showing it to the entire public or that sort of thing, or giving it over to Channel 7, that sort of thing. And that investigation continued. But that investigation did not continue in the grand jury. That investigation did not continue under the notion that there is a probable cause to believe that an intentional killing has happened here. Once we proceeded to the grand jury, we have to protect all of the evidence in the case, not just the video, all of the evidence. We have to preserve it. We have to make sure that the grand jury is not tainted. We have to make sure that the process is not tainted. The court just made a ruling saying that the video will be impounded up until the trial in this case. I think that was the right decision. It comes down to this. We want to make sure that we're administering justice. In this case, we want to make sure that we do everything we can for the survivors of Mr. King, his family, so they know that we did everything in a judicious way, in the right way, that achieved justice. As the leader, as the head, I made a decision collaboratively with everybody through the process that the charging should happen here. But now put yourselves in the same shoes that I'm in for a moment, and imagine if we turned over any evidence or video in this particular case in a manner that we should not have. I do not want to be the one, and I would be in the shoes of the one saying to the Kenny family, we cannot proceed with this case in the manner that we had hoped. We are not going to be able to introduce this evidence because something was excluded, because we did something wrong. There's also matters that pertain to the rights of the defendant as well. We are, as prosecutors, we have an obligation, an ethical obligation to be cognizant of the rights of the accused as well. There are protections there as well. So this is not just about getting justice for the family. It's also making sure that the rights of the accused are secure. And in the end, ultimately, that we can have a fair trial, that we can actually bring jurors together who haven't been impacted because we showed the video to the whole world because we turned it over to Channel 7, right? Or showed it to a couple hundred people in a meeting. And so, I understand the public's desire and concerns around transparency, and we endeavor to do that in every single circumstance. But this case falls into that exception where we have to deal with the legality of where we are in terms of process, but also making sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that justice is achieved.
I can definitely respect what you said there as far as the integrity of the case. Couple of questions, and I know we were slated till 10:30, but I understand that I can keep you for just a few more minutes.
Few more minutes, yeah.
There are a couple of other questions I wanted to ask. You said you understand the community's concern around transparency. This case, Attorney Hayden, has how some people in the community have perceived observation of some increase of engagement with officers with Black and brown young people. This, Kevin, respectfully, I'm going to keep it 100. Law enforcement was not happy with your decision.
Mm-hmm.
And as the district attorney, and you're here as a candidate, that, things are interesting with law enforcement. And so I need to also ask, is it, and I mentioned this to you in the Eagle Room meeting, you and Michael Cox.
Yeah.
This thing of some interesting behavior of officers that may, and I know you can't speak for all the officers, but Kevin, there's a change. There's an air that they're upset, and sometimes that displays itself in its engagement. In the case of integrity, sometimes, you being the head law enforcement officer may have to investigate another law enforcement officer. The integrity of these cases are huge. And so one of the major things I've heard from the community is the integrity review unit. How many attorneys and investigators are assigned to it? How many applications or cases does it review each year? And then I'll ask also, does your unit review the integrity of cases when law enforcement is being charged? A lot there, but I think the central thing is the integrity of cases when it comes to law enforcement breaking the law. How are you assuring that there's accountability there when law enforcement is investigating and prosecuting law enforcement?
I'm going to make sure. So I'm going to answer that question as best I can. If I misunderstood any of it,
I admit it was the longest one today. It was a lot.
If I misunderstood any of it, let me know. I'll say one thing at the outset too. First thing is that, our office has been steadfastly committed to community engagement. We cannot possibly do our job in the courtroom if we're only in the courtroom and we do not understand and interact and get involved with the communities that we serve. So we have a community engagement team that's not just doing community engagement all by themselves, but is actively scaffolding and creating the strategic plan that gets our office out into community. Community policing and community prosecution is vitally important to the job that we do. With regards to Integrity Review Bureau, we continue to do that work. It's important. It's an important foundation. People have to believe that we are doing the right thing. People have to believe that when justice has not been done in a criminal case, and we know that, and we can establish that needs to be fixed. So the important work of the Integrity Review Board continues. We've had, during the course of my administration, we've had 11 instances where we've had either an exoneration or a sentence reduction. We currently have 3 employees working on the Integrity Review Board. One of whom is a retired judge who has done a tremendous job of really helping us how to continue to do this work even better. We then have 2 other assistant district attorneys that are working underneath him. And we're about to, and we've already made an offer, I believe it's been accepted. We're about to hire 1 more. That 1 more is a woman that's coming to us from Larry Krasner's office down in Philadelphia. And as you know, they've been on the forefront of progressive movement as well, and they doing a tremendous job with integrity review as well. So we are bringing her in to that team as well. So in relatively short order, we will be up to 4 prosecutors doing the job. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to a situation integrity review of a police officer, I think is what you're asking is if there was a case where an officer is convicted of a crime and they say that they didn't get justice, will we review their case in the same way that we would any other? Was that the question?
Not necessarily. It's just it's twofold, and I'll condense it more. Thank you for answering the part about the unit.
Yeah.
The main thing I'm looking for is you answered it. It's the what are you saying to community members that have this observation, perception, and some experience of a different behavior of law enforcement? I think that was the one that sir is it's interesting. I've seen some videos, heard some stories, and I asked that because of the context of me mentioning that law enforcement not being happy with you. Kevin, we know sometimes that there's some bad apples, in actors in every discipline, but there's points of reference when law enforcement is upset. The brunt is felt by Black and brown men.
Yep. I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, I'll go back from a personal context. I got 2 young Black men living under my roof. One's 19, the other's 17. As a Black father, I've had those conversations with them about how they should conduct themselves if in a situation where they need to interact with law enforcement in a way that doesn't create any problems for them. I understand full well. I'm in community all the time and hear from people all the time. And this is nothing new. This is a historical issue, one that we need to continue to combat and address. Look, our criminal legal system still disproportionately impacts people of color. We know that. We're continuing to do everything that we can. That's what criminal legal reform is all about. But when it comes to over-policing in communities of color, that is always a concern. When it comes to police conduct, that is always our concern. We won't hesitate to hold any law enforcement official or any public official accountable for wrongdoing when we see it and when we can prove it. And I know that those complaints are brought and reviewed by the Boston Police Department, and at times they're reviewed by us. So we have a public accountability bureau that leads those sorts of investigations, and we're doing that all the time. There are other cases where we've proceeded with charging police officers in less serious matters than the Officer O'Malley situation. But we're always cognizant of that. And I know the commissioner is too. It's vitally important that we protect and serve all of our communities in a way that's fair, that's just, that recognizes and centers the humanity of everybody, particularly people who may be having some issues. Sometimes you've got to come alongside somebody and support them through the difficulty as opposed to blame them for the difficulty. And that's not always easy to discern, but that's what we try to do. That's what we try to do when the cases come before us in court, when we look at diversion, when we look at how to handle the case. It's vitally, vitally important. I think that in many ways the public trust has increased over time as we continue in these efforts. But we're always going to continue to do that work. And then I would say on the other end too, and because this was asked, I mean, people have asked whether or not this has affected our ability to do our job. When it comes to day-to-day operation and boots on the ground, doing the job of administering justice and engaging in investigations and enforcement when it's appropriate in conjunction with our law enforcement partners, I haven't experienced any backlash or negativity in any way. And I don't think that the team of prosecutors that I work for, and we've got some of the very best in this state, I don't think they have either. That's a tribute to our law enforcement partners who understand that despite maybe some tension and difficulties, we still have a job to do, and that's to protect protect and serve the public. That's what we're here to do. So we haven't had any issues in that regard, as far as I know. And then the last thing I would say is if there's not some bit of tension between my office and me and law enforcement, then we're probably not doing the job the right way. Look, Commissioner and I have conversations where we agree to disagree. There are situations where I say, no, this is how it needs to be done, and this is what we're going to do. And that tension between our office and myself as the chief law enforcement officer in the county and the police department, that's natural, and it's okay. And if we are constantly just bowing at the altar of the police and doing everything they want us to do, we're probably not doing a very good job of overseeing all of how justice is done.
Agreed. I have a few minutes, and as a candidate, there's a little bit of a speed round, kind of in the same context of law enforcement. There's been an observation in the last campaign, and I've seen some chatter about this one, that law enforcement tends to be one of your major donor bases. How would you describe the demographic, if you will, generally, of where most of your support is coming? Support with that line through the S.
Yeah.
How do you talk about your fundraising? And then one more sort of campaign question, and I understand I do have to let you go.
Yep.
How do you describe your fundraising base?
Oh, okay. I'll answer that first, then you have the other question. Sure. Look, I think the notion that law enforcement has been a fundraising base for me in the past is a little bit of a misperception. It certainly doesn't exist now. So look, anyone who thinks that I get some political gain from this, nothing could be further from the truth. So I've always been very careful to make sure that there is a line between myself and our office when it comes to law enforcement. That's included political contributions. So I haven't accepted contributions from unions in the past. And I'm certainly not getting them now. That's okay. That having been said, we're still, from a fundraising standpoint, we're still doing very, very well at high levels and at the grassroots level as well. We're running a grassroots campaign. We're out in community. We're doing the things that need to be done, being in community. But you can't run a campaign without fundraising. And look, we're doing well in that regard, and we're going to continue to do so.
I want to also ask you. I made a mistake and looked at. That's why I don't pay attention to the comments in these type of, because you should see these comments, Kevin. They are. But one question I wanted to ask, and it is a central thing. I've seen the back and forth online. Will you debate? Yes or no?
Yes, we will. I think
what happened with this?
I think it is scheduled.
Okay.
I think it is scheduled for the 6th. I'm not 100% sure about the date.
I got a nod in the background. It is
in my head, but I think it's already scheduled for the 6th.
Okay. So you are going to have a debate with Rachel Rollins and Linda Champion and yourself.
I hope so. Yep. Okay. In other words, I can't speak for the others, but my understanding is that the three of us will be live and present on the 6th. That's my understanding.
Kevin, you did not say you can't speak for the others, and a lot of the chatter is you spoke and not at this one that was planned for tomorrow, last night, tomorrow. All right. So right now there is a debate scheduled for August 6th. And then I'll ask you, I'm sure we'll see it online. I believe that is all that I can fit into. There were two, if you can give me maybe 2 more minutes. There was the other case that had to do with Stephen Pena.
Mm-hmm.
And there you had an opportunity to accept or, go back and appeal, and you decided to appeal. Can you give us the reasoning why you did that? And then when it went, they wound up granting still the new trial. Is that something that you think differently about based on a decision? And what was your philosophy or reasoning for not accepting that lower court or lower decision?
Yeah. So just to go back a little bit from a historical understanding of the situation, that case carried over from the former DA's administration into mine. So she and or her team had asked for an evidentiary hearing on the matter. We continued to agree with that philosophy that the evidentiary hearing was needed. That evidentiary hearing was conducted during my tenure by the same prosecutor who had asked for the evidentiary hearing under the prior administration. After the judge conducted the evidentiary hearing and issued his ruling, without getting too much into the weeds, because I don't think we have time for it, in looking at it, we believe that the judge made some pretty significant errors in terms of both legal conclusions that he made, but also errors in application of the facts and an understanding of the facts as they were presented at that hearing. And so we felt that it was appropriate to appeal based on some of those significant errors in our opinion. At this point, the SJC has ruled. We have reviewed it. We respect the court's decision, as we do in every single case. I mean, we don't win everything. We don't lose everything. We work in a system where we ultimately accept how the court rules. In this case, we absolutely do. So we have to meet with the family, and we're working to do that soon and promptly. And once we've done that, then we can share with everybody how we're going to proceed.
I appreciate it. And as you said, Brother Joey Bennett just came into the room. I know a name you know. Lynn Courier just came into the room, a name you know. And y'all are coming in when we're about 18 minutes overtime, but 3 minutes hard time, kind of overtime. Attorney Hayden, thank you. There was some insight. I learned a couple of things. Hopefully the audience did as well. I don't know if we'll be able to, maybe get you back or do some sort of virtual conversation, but I appreciate you being with us today and answering the questions. There's one last policy question, and I know that this is something on your plate as well, is in reference to our sister, and I want to pronounce it right, Licinia Marte, the young lady who was killed in Mattapan, and it was just said again. And thank you for the clarity, because one thing here was you did say that a homicide, the medical examiner's determination is based on a death at the hands of someone else. The medical examiner has determined that that was a homicide. There is ambiguity, as this was trying to be portrayed as a suicide. I have a question, a couple of them, about this case. Why is the identity of the, if you all know, I don't know if this is BPD, wherewith you can, what can you say to community with understanding that there are, the mother has stated that this was a domestic violence case, and you can also speak to what your office does in these type of situations that are so horrific. So an update with where you can, and then also what does your office do particularly to prevent, intervene, and then at worst have to prosecute have to prosecute those that have victimized people through intimate partner violence.
Yeah, look, when it comes to prosecuting domestic violence cases, and the people that do that, my office will tell you it's a very, very difficult and challenging job. There's always issues with regards to intrafamilial cooperation, how you hold someone accountable for in a situation where family dynamics come into play, and there's still emotions and maybe even forgiveness in those situations. So those are challenging. That's the one thing I would say about those cases overall. With regards to the young woman, Lucinda, that you just referred to, and her unfortunate passing, I will say this has I get an opportunity to say it now because you asked. The media has spent far too much time and attention on who owns the apartment, the home, who has absolutely nothing to do with the case, has nothing to do with if allegedly domestic violence is the reason this happened, then obviously Mr. Harris and the landlord has nothing to do with that. But all the focus has been on that, and it's not at me from the very beginning that the young woman whose life has been lost and the family that mourns and grieves her loss has not been centered in this situation. That's just tragic. Has not been centered in this situation because of a outright irrelevant sideshow. That's bothered me.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, because you just gave me an opportunity to speak it.
Yes, sir.
This is not about who owned a home where this happened. This is about the tragic, unfortunate loss of a young lady and the family that mourns her. And the case is under investigation, and we are doing everything we can, and I mean everything. I'm not going to get I don't want to get partial with regards to investigators, but the ones involved here are some of the very best. We are doing everything we can to identify the person that committed what has now been ruled a homicide, and that we ultimately believe may also rise to a level of criminality, and hold that person accountable, so that we can get justice for Lucinda and her family.
Yep. And I just want to say her name correctly, and it is, and I know you respect and understand that, and I'm going to look at it so I have to go into the comments to do so, because I think I saw it here. It is Yoselini Marte, and I may have
Marte,
Miss Marte, that we can
Miss
see.
Marte. Yeah. Look, our hearts go out to Ms. Marte and her family, and that simply has not been centered enough in this situation up until this point. I hope that I've been given that opportunity to do so. We pray for her and her family.
Yes, sir. Attorney Hayden, thank you so much for being with us today. And we shall see each other in community soon and talk soon. Thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good to see you, Jimmy. God bless.
Team and Kate and everyone in the background that made this happen. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. You take care. God bless you.
All right, folks. I hope as much as there are. So I think everybody that's on the platform, certain guests, comments will just, and oh boy, y'all are in here. So we are going to get ready to wrap up. Please keep in mind, I know that there was a lot. I've seen that flyer go back and forth. And so right now, my understanding is that the debate and DA forum is taking place on August 6th. And so as I see that, y'all may see them posted. That's taking place on August 6th. And I think that is it. Announcements wise, Mayor Wu will be with us on Wednesday, the 5th. Also, if you all know some young people that may want to learn about podcasting, House and I are working together to teach some young people about podcasting. And so that is going to take place starting on Tuesday, August 4th. And I'm going to try. Let's see if I can get this thing to work with me. Oh, shoot. It's on the other phone. I'm going to try to put the link in the comments. Hold on. And that is taking place at House. All right, let's see if this works. All right. House Teen Center Podcast Camp is on the Java with Jimmy page. And also, I am putting it on the James Hills page as well. And I think that's Java with Jimmy. I was going to say, I think I just learned something. This shows up on the James page, but hold on. All right. All right. That is it for me. And we will see you on Monday at 10 a.m. and Wednesday I'm tired. I'm tired. There was a lot to try to pack into that. All right. We'll see you Monday at 10 a.m. Have a great, safe weekend, everybody. Events this weekend. None real. Why does August 1st ring a bell? I don't know. All right. We'll see y'all on Monday at 10.